doing on this fine Thursday? This is the Slate, August 4th, 2022. Brendan Glasheen here today in place of Adam Kaufman. This is typically the Kaufman Thursday shift. Here with Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler. This is quite the treat. I never get to see Reed. How you doing, Reed?
Good. We were talking a little before, Glash. You've been on the road for what, 50 weeks out of 52? So I'm glad you made an appearance here. I should be the one asking you, man. Where have you been?
It's amazing, it's amazing what the internet does here in these times. You can just bring the computer, put it in your backpack, open it up, and I mean, bam, Zoom.
You would think though, but yet Adam Kaufman is nowhere to be found.
No, not today. We don't know where he is. Could be anywhere. Could be at a soccer game. Could be. I mean, he's doing me a favor today.
Could be in a movie by himself.
Right? Yeah, that's probably like the most likely scenario, to be honest. But
yeah, well, we've got an NFL game tonight. Woohoo! Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, baby.
Just it's even though no one's going to play in this game, it's good to get the juices flowing. Guys are in uniform. They're going through the progressions. It's a good feeling. Good. Emerson's Jaguars against Reed's Raiders. It's pretty good. I mean, yeah. If you two do like some sort of live stream tonight, I'd watch. I'd be intrigued. But
yeah, we need to get the powers that be. Jeff Ulrich. You need to start talking to people who make decisions at DraftKings to get us on a live stream.
Who knows?
No, but Emerson, he's getting ready for his 100-hole golf event. That charity event that he's doing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I gave him some money for that, so
yeah,
that better happen.
Wow. Clash. We've already exposed you off camera about something. Did you donate to Emerson's charitable organization?
The first one I did, yeah.
What about this one? You gotta.
I mean,
we have money bags over here. You're working at ESPN. You got that Disney check coming through.
It's a great cause. I'm sure it is, but like Emerson, you got to give me a heads up here. I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, you should have gave a warning that you were going to ask for this twice, or potentially a third time. So,
gosh, you're the only guy that will blame Emerson, who's trying to raise money for children. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. Well, I contributed the first time. Anyway, we're going to talk a little golf here to start, just to kind of get some thoughts off the chest for both of you. How are your Wyndham Championship plays going so far,
Jeffrey?
It's a mixed bag. Aaron Wise was out pretty nice this morning. Probably could have been a bit better, but Aaron Wise looks good. Like that, the putter looks really dialed in for Aaron Wise right now, and I think the rest of his game will probably get better as the week goes on. So I am actually pretty bullish about his chances. Obviously, Sung JM was kind of like the guy who is the really high-end chalky play that's doing well right now. Lowry and Zalatoris, the other two guys, were over 10K, kind of just laying there. Reed and I were talking about a couple other players. Jason Day is actually playing pretty well. He's got an eagle putt coming up, and but like our guys like Corey Connors, Russell Henley, not shockingly, haven't putted well today. So it's pretty much just Groundhog Day with the rest of the plays. But yeah, Wise is a guy I really liked at the start of the week. I thought he was really good value. He played pretty well today outside of like a couple hiccups, and I think he'll probably clean that up. I'll be pretty shocked if he doesn't, keep this pace up, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, didn't you tweet out that Wise made like 100 feet worth of putts?
He made a 30-foot eagle, and then he made a 40-foot birdie, and then he just missed a 20-foot birdie. Like his putting stroke, I forgot he went to the long putter until today again, and like he looks locked in with that thing, to be honest. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on this guy's chances here because he's a really, really good player. He can go out and hit like 16 greens in the final round, and if the putter's locked in, which it looked really good today, I like his chances. I do. I just like Aaron Wise as a player. So that's a player I'm big on. Someone like I would be recommending to maybe think about. Zayden finished well too. He's at 4. That's a guy I might take a look at adding. And like I said, randomly Jason Day is in contention again. He missed his eagle putt, but he's going to birdie here probably. So yeah, he just birdied. So he's going to get to 4 under, a couple holes to go. He might get out 5. I don't know. Jason Day is Jason Day. Probably withdraw tomorrow.
Typically, when I do these shows with Jeff Reed, it's usually like Monday, or I don't, or you do them Wednesday with Emerson too.
Yeah.
So when of course an event is underway like this, I know there's a variety of factors that might jump into your head: the course, the field, who has shined, who hasn't. But when you make a decision about live betting here, so Jeff just mentioned a few names. What are some things that might factor in? And then with that being said, is there anyone that you might be looking at and saying, okay, hey, there's some value here hopping in on someone live?
Yeah, I mean, the normal thing to do, right, is to look at the guys who were good at ball striking but just couldn't make any putts, right? Like just off the top of my head, like Smotherman was 5 strokes gained, in ball striking, so that's approach and off the tee, and then he lost his stroke putting, right? That can switch, right? And Smotherman shot 5 under. Like Aaron Wise too. Aaron Wise is a good call. Jeff and I were talking with Emerson about it yesterday, and he was, I believe, plus 4,000 pre-tournament, which was just a misprice, right? You saw the names that were around him, and you saw what he could do. He had 3 bogeys today, won the last hole, right? So he had 6 birdies and an eagle and 3 bogeys. That's usually not the case at this course. And he's going out in the morning time tomorrow. So that's someone, showdown. If you want to put some money on that after round 1, that's fine. But, there's some guys out there too. Keith Mitchell was, 2 under today. He gained almost, 3.5 strokes ball striking, but lost on approach, or excuse me, on putting. So that's the stuff that you have to look at if you want to add some. At the same time too, when you take a look at this course and how it plays, especially over the weekend, it's going to be like, I'd reserve, if you're going to live bet, that is, when you talk about golf betting, if it's not the matchups on the weekend or just matchups in general, live betting is probably the biggest leverage spot that you can make, just because look, Jeff just mentioned it, right? Jason Day is on a par 5 and he's about to eagle. You could put money on Jason Day before that putt, and if he makes it, those odds are going to change and shift very quickly.
Right?
The books aren't going to, they're like proactively change them because Jason Day has an eagle putt. They're just not going to do that. So that's something you can do. I think Davis Riley too. Davis Riley is someone that we were talking about a ton through like the middle and then probably the last third of the season, and he hasn't been playing well at all. But today, shot 3 under, gained 3.52 on ball striking, and he lost putting. Like, he's someone that if he can start playing like he was at Valspar, that's someone that I'd be interested in. Again, like, it's the one thing that does scare me about all of this is that if you don't have Sungjae in pre-tournament, like, he's the one guy that's near the top that could, quote unquote, run away with this thing, right? That's the one thing that you have to worry about. That if you're placing these bets, Sungjae at 700, he looked solid. He missed a 6.5-foot par putt, but it really came from a bad approach shot that then was in a tricky spot to get up and down, and he just missed a putt that he left above the hole. But other than that, Sungjae looked fantastic. Like, he was driving the ball in the middle of the fairway. He was getting close with the short irons, and he was making putts. He had 2 eagles today. So, like, Sungjae is that one guy that I'd worry about for your live betting. But yeah, there's some guys, and Davis Riley is probably the one that I have my eye on.
Okay. Davis Riley coming in he's at 3 under. Okay. And he's done for the day. So, and there's a lot of guys in that 3 under, 4 under range that could make leaps and bounds. Anyone else, Jeff? Maybe a dark horse before we move on?
No, I mean, I think Riley might be, if you're looking for a guy with longer odds, yeah, absolutely. You could look at Davis Riley. You get him a little bit bigger than like Bezuidenhout or anyone like that. But, this tournament has seen guys. The other thing is you can just wait. It's not like you have to go out there and bet someone after round 1. Some guys can certainly blow up tomorrow and get themselves well behind. The winner at this event, I think it's like 4 or 5 times over the last like 8 or 9 years. We've had a lot of winners come from like 4 back in the final round. So, you could sprinkle a little bit now, but it's also good. Like, I mean, like, you should be, this tournament tends to get bunched up.
Yep.
I think outside of that year, Siwoo just came and like destroyed everyone with an opening round 60. We usually see it pretty bunched up with like a guy with a shot or 2 lead going into the final round. But there's going to be opportunities, guys like 3 or 4 back going into the final round where you can probably hit them up at nice odds too.
Well, and too, before we move on, I mean, the Herminator, he made the cut on the number, or like 1 above the cut when he won in 2021. And then he just shot 61, 62 on the weekend.
Yeah. Yep.
So, right, like, there's that as well that you could, I mean, that's sort of an anomaly, but still, like, that's this course, especially in the morning time. These greens are super receptive. So if you get hot with and you find something, then you could easily you saw John Hull, like he had 5 birdies in a row, and he shot what did he shoot 9 under today?
Yep.
So that could be done like in multiple rounds, because Herman, who was like 600 to 1 plus 60,000 pre-tournament, won this in 2021.
Okay, let's go to the NFL. Is there any interest in betting the preseason? Are you at all interested in this?
Jeff,
of course we're interested. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't really. I mean, the public seems to be all over the Raiders here, and like whatever. But it's the Hall of Fame game. Like we're literally just diving into depth charts like right off the bat. I mean,
I don't know if you saw it, Jeff. Reed was like, moving his eyebrows up and down, like, "Yep, what's up?"
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay,
I know what's going on.
Trust me, how many I've said whatever to the Raiders more times than Jeff has. Like it says A in Canada. Like it's like I share most of that sentiment with Jeff, but this year's going to be different.
I do think look, there are bets I like this week. I actually think my favorite is probably the over. We got 30 points here, like 30.5 points. And the thing that has me leaning towards the over is you've got like, we're not necessarily like Kyle Slaughter. I mentioned he's going to be the third stringer for the Jags, and Luton, who's going to be starting. Like both of these guys have played, like this isn't fresh for them. They're not going to be so out of their element that it's just like, we can't even complete a forward pass. Slaughter just played a full season with whatever that league was called, the USFL. and Luton has started games for the Jet, like in the NFL. So these guys are probably going to be pretty competent, especially going up against third stringers. And then on the other side, again, like you've kind of got a similar scenario with Mullins and Stidham, right? I mean, legit players who have been in the NFL. We're not getting like random like rookies who like who knows what's going to happen, like 5th round draft picks. I mean, Luton was like a late round draft pick, but he's had that experience. So yeah, I do like the over here. I think that I think there's a good chance that that'll hit. That's probably my favorite way to play this. But I mean, I'll take the plus money on the Jags. I'll bite. I don't really see like a huge advantage in the depth chart or anything like that. The Jags have some depth at running back. The Raiders, obviously, just, I mean, again, I don't see any edge in quarterback here. So yeah, give me the Jags on the plus money, but I like the over here.
In terms of the money percentage, 68% of the bets, 75% of the money coming in on the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that
and more money on the under too, which is really surprising. I know it's preseason and everyone bets unders, and maybe that's the trend, but like at 30.5, I mean, like to have like a decent amount of public money on the under. 60%
of the bets, 54% of the cash.
Last year's Hall of Fame game was to the Steelers and the Cowboys, I think.
Yes.
And the Cowboys have, and one of the more prolific offenses.
Or no, in Canton. Sorry, duh.
Yeah, in Canton. That's okay. You're in a hotel. So that's fine. The air is different in there.
Enough. Just
recycled.
Go.
It's recycled. 16-3, Jeff. It was 16-3 last year, I believe. And the Hall of Fame game, 7 out of the last 9 have gone under. So yes,
go look at the Cowboys QBs. Like who? Here's the thing. Tell me the QBs who played in that game, Reed.
Ben Danucci.
You can't.
Danucci.
CJ Beathard. Andrew Dalton. Producer Andrew Dalton. And no, you're lucky. I was going to give you some credit, Jeff. I was going to say that you're right. These aren't just scrubs, right? What you have, and I'm sure that this plays into Brendan Glasheen's wheelhouse a little bit. You got some Patriots, former Patriots that are on the Raiders right now, and Jared Stidham and Isaiah Zuber.
Kaufman's not hosting. I am. So
right. So you don't like the Patriots? I just saw you tweet something about the Patriots not too long ago.
I was at training camp this morning.
Yeah, I know. That's why. So you had like Isaiah Zuber, 6 feet, 190 pounds, played in Josh McDaniel's offense. He was drafted by the Patriots in 2020. Jared Stidham. So to your point, Jeffrey, yes, I do believe that these guys, and look, like I mentioned with the Raiders, they have a ton of wide receivers, and they have to figure out what they want to do at running back. Ramondre Stevenson is also back there, Amir Abdullah, right? So they have some players that we know. They're not just scrubs like you were talking about. So there are. They
don't have Ramondre Stevenson, but they do have.
Oh no, excuse me, Brandon Bolden, not Ramondre.
Yeah, Brandon Bolden. Brandon Bolden. Right. Yeah.
Sorry,
Right.
but like,
Okay, you're
so
right.
many-
There's a bunch of Patriots on the Raiders.
There's so many Patriot running backs.
McDaniels brought 4 assistants with him from New England.
I
Ben
like the
Jarvis,
Raiders.
Green Ellis. He's also on the team right now.
I like the Raiders backups too, like Keelan
Right.
Cole, Mac Hollins. You know, like those are quality
Tyron
players.
Johnson. So there are some players. Having said that, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to points, right?
Yeah.
So like, could it be 20-10? Yeah. 17-10, and that's a pretty good preseason game. If you ask me, 17-10 is a lot of points in preseason. Your touchdowns, Jeffrey.
It's the first game, though. I have to be bullish. I mean, I don't care.
Jeffrey
like I have to.
Jeff is the internal optimist.
I'll switch. I'll switch. If this one flutters out, trust me. Yeah, I'll be bearish on everything. I'll be like Pierce, Grandpa Pierce, captain the defenses. It's going to be 9-6. All these guys stink. But for this game, for this first football game of the year, we're going to go over. We're going to go Kyle Slaughterhouse 5 is going to score like 2 touchdowns. You know, Keelan Cole's going to go for like an 80-yarder with the revenge narrative. All the narratives are hitting. You got to take the over. It's 30 points.
Garrett Gilbert, Ben DiNucci.
Garrett Gilbert, great.
And DiNucci, that's right.
I kept saying that. Ben DiNucci. Yeah, that's
Ben DiNucci.
James Madison, great. And then Cooper Rush, who beat the Vikings last year.
That is so terrible. I mean, that makes tonight's game just look like these guys should be Hall of Famers.
Slaughter is any better? He was in the USFL.
Slaughter's amazing. Don't you dare discredit my guy.
To debunk potential, just for the conversation here, and rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. He was in the game last year. But I only bring him up because he was somewhere else before, got an opportunity elsewhere, and he was 8 of 13. But he was on the team that scored 16 points. So all we're asking for is for the other team. So Dallas was the other team last year, just to be somewhat competent, and you get 30 and a half.
Right. This is the first game, right? I mean, how long have we been off? I can't remember. Like 400 days since the Super Bowl. This is the first
400
game.
days, Jeff. Read, there's 362.
Yeah, 400 days. So like, look, I trust me, I want there to be a lot of points. I really do. Because this year feels different, Jeff and Glash. Feels different for Raider Nation this year. But if you've been in my position before, and I know you haven't, Glash, because you guys have been spoiled here in New England. Jeff's only been watching CFL. You haven't been in my position as a Raiders fan, where you are optimistic.
I've been doing NASCAR.
Things don't come through. So look, if this game is 25 points total, I will be like ecstatic. 13-12, very exciting game. 1 touchdown apiece, maybe a safety in there somewhere. I'd be ecstatic.
I've been contributing to DraftKings for 5 years. One of the favorite things I've ever done or witnessed, I don't even have to work the segment, is when Jeff would give his CFL picks and Reed would just kind of react and just go off the cuff and give it to you.
We'd force Reed to name a player in the CFL. It was fantastic.
So good. Okay, how about the real thing? Is that fair? Are we unless you have more takes on this game tonight?
Isaiah Zuber is going to be the MVP of this game.
Okay, so
I do not have more takes on this game. Sorry,
okay,
I don't know if we need any more takes on this
Let's look
game.
ahead to the season ahead here. Both of you really argue about Kirk Cousins. I really enjoy that banter about how you feel about Kirk Cousins. Reed, where do you stand on Trey Lance as the quarterback of the Niners?
Yeah, well, I think Jeff and I are going to agree with this because we have in the past. I'm extremely bullish on Trey Lance, and more so for fantasy purposes, right? On DFS, he's just a cheat code. You saw what he did last year in very limited starts. And look, he got some hero balls to Deebo Samuel that pumped up his stats. But when you talk about what they spent on him, right, you also got to take this from a business perspective, that they spent a ton of money on Trey Lance and draft equity. So they're gonna basically make it work, right? Or try as much as they can to make it work. Deebo Samuel comes back, gets paid, a GDP of a third world country for his contract. And you have a consistent offense that's with San Francisco, and that's what you need as a rookie quarterback. And we saw this with Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying they're the same. So I think Lamar Jackson is a little bit of a better passer, or was in his first year, but it was kind of the same, right? Joe Flacco started, and then Lamar Jackson took over. And now you have Jimmy Garoppolo starting when Trey Lance was a rookie, and Trey Lance sitting for a year. I think that's going to pay dividends, or I hope so. And if you take a look at their game total, if you take a look at their division, if you take a look at what Trey Lance is at MVP, I think you can be fairly bullish on what he's able to do, because when you have a defense that can't predict what the quarterback is going to do, that's what really gives them fits, right? If you know, okay, this guy goes through his progressions 1, 2, and 3,
right?
Like, yeah, I'm dumbing it down a ton. That's you can kind of predict where they're going. With Trey Lance, you can't really predict, and he, like I said, he might be a quote unquote bad quarterback from a statistical standpoint, but he's going to win them games, in my opinion.
Okay. So Jeff brought up MVP as well, plus 5,000 Trey Lance to win MVP. Those are his current odds.
Yeah, I mean that's better odds than Russell Henley pre-tournament.
He's back up to plus 5,000.
I think he dropped right when that Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I think last time I saw him, he's at plus 4,000. But
okay,
but even then, I mean that's massive in the NFL.
Yeah,
sure is.
Well, that's what I was saying at the time. Like, I mean, and look, I mean, I'm not going to say it again, but like, I just
why not?
I think Lance just gives the 49ers more outs to win games. You know, they weren't going to win shootouts. Right. It's just a perfect example last year against the Rams. They were up against a confident offense, an offense that put up like 23 points or whatever they put up. And what did they need to do? They needed to score a few more points to win that game. They couldn't do it because of Garoppolo. Garoppolo literally just took the first snap of that winning drive and like just it was over. So like Trey Lance isn't going to do that. He's going to move the ball with his legs more. He's going to give them more explosive plays. I think it just makes San Francisco such a deadly team. And obviously I'm pretty bullish on them for the season. I think that they're a good overplay for win losses. I think that they're just they're going to be good this year.
Okay. I also, so I like how Reed brought up Debo, because I've got a question about Deontay Johnson and the Steelers here in a second. But the other story, the other angle to the Niners is, why hasn't Jimmy Garoppolo been traded yet? Like this
That's
suits,
an easy one.
This suits both of your arguments, though, that no one else in the league wants him at the price. That the price matters too, $25 million. Now they have till August 30th to move on before that becomes fully guaranteed. So there's still some time. But Jeff, we've talked about this a ton. We're at the point now where, okay, it's, he's healthy now, he's playing, or he's in practice, I should say. Why hasn't he been dealt yet?
It's where we are in the thing. Look at Baker Mayfield. Like, he got dealt basically the latest you'll see a quarterback get dealt and still be in the mix for a starting quarterback. You can't make changes to your quarterback depth chart at this time, unless it's just like, I'm just bringing in a guy to have a warm body. Like, people just don't understand this about the NFL. It's just like, some people do, most people don't. These offenses are like you can't just go in and be like, oh yeah, I'm chucking the ball. That's not what it is. Different systems, like different playbooks. These guys don't learn it overnight. It doesn't work. And teams know that. So they go into training camp like, hey, this is it. Like, we're not bringing in a brand new starting quarterback 4 weeks before the season starts. Baker Mayfield, that it kind of just shows the desperation that Carolina was in, that they did it. But even he was right before that threshold of training camp. Now that you're at Garoppolo, if anyone's taking Garoppolo on, it's because they just want depth. They just think that, that they don't believe they're in their guy, or it's just, it's just like too good a deal to pass up for them. Taking Garoppolo on is going to cost the team a lot. So I don't even know how it could be a potential deal unless the GM is super high in Jimmy Garoppolo long-term, which nobody probably is. So it's really just comes down to, is there a team out there? And there's probably like two of them, like the Texans, who are like, this could go really bad if Davis Mills is just like regresses a little bit, because he really wasn't that good last year. Should we just get Garoppolo in so we can be competent? And then 5 weeks in, he'll learn, he'll know the system. That's basically the situation you're looking for Garoppolo. There's nowhere he's going to challenge for the starting job. There's none, because he doesn't have time to learn a system. So it's just like, it is what it is. I mean, like, until a team gets desperate enough to either look at their depth chart and get panicked, or there's an injury, he's not going anywhere.
And he's not going to practice, just for the record. He's cleared to. He can throw without restriction, but he's not going to practice.
No,
that's the big thing, Glash, is I think he needs to be cleared first. And once the surgery went well and everything was fine, then a lot of the prognostication was, okay, mid-August is probably when he's going to get dealt. And here's probably what I think could happen and why the Niners were potentially, patient with him is that the Cleveland Browns might be in a needy position for a quarterback, right? And like if you're going all in, quote unquote, with someone like Deshaun Watson, who's not going to be there, it ain't Jacoby Brissett. And it hasn't been Jacoby Brissett when he's had the starting position with a really good offense and a really good defense with the Colts, right? He had that opportunity and he wasn't good at all. So you take a look at that situation with the Browns, and if they have to be without him for the entire year, Watson, that is, insert in Jimmy Garoppolo. And look, the Steelers as well. Look, Trubisky, I know Trubisky and Kenny Pickett are there, but they've also been thrown in the mix with someone who would, a team that could be interested in someone like Jimmy Garoppolo.
When Deshaun Watson was acquired, the line, Reed and I talked about this, Jeff, before we went on, the win total was set at 9.5. So if you factor in a 6-game suspension, you figure Jacoby Brissett can tread water. But if you look at that back half of Cleveland's schedule, it is absolutely grueling. They go, it's a tough schedule in the first place, but I'll just start. Okay, so at Baltimore, home Cincy, at Miami, at Buffalo, home Tampa, the Texans, that's a layup. Bengals, Ravens, Saints, at Washington, that stretch when he would have been back with this appeal going on. I think that's what Reed's getting at. This appeal could, of course, make it a longer suspension. And now you're starting to wonder, can Jacoby Brissett give you 4 or 5 games and like I said, tread water? Sure. But can he give you 10, 12 if this gets doubled?
No,
right?
And this, like, I'm basically to the point where I'm just out on Cleveland.
Wow. Okay.
Like, I just feel like it's not good. It looked like it was cleared up, and then everyone's like, oh yeah. It's like we all forgot that the NFL was going to appeal. I mean, I did. I think most people in the media just kind of brushed it off too. But yeah, this is not over. It's going to be an all-year story. And I with the media stuff, like, you're asking a lot for a team to just shut this out week after week. If things start to go downhill, questions about everything. If Deshaun Watson does play and he's bad, questions. Like, I don't know, man. The Browns as a franchise would probably have been better if he had just been suspended for a year. And they could just, like, go into 2023 with a clean slate. Obviously, it would never be a clean slate with what he did. But you get my point. From a franchise, from an NFL perspective, it would be, okay, he did the year. It's done. Like, there's nothing else to talk about because it's over. And the NFL saved face because they gave him a full year. Yeah. Now it's just like this season is just, I think it's bad news. And totally. The other thing about the Browns is they have moved up, if you bring up the division winning odds, to basically even with the Bengals. The last time I looked at them on DraftKings anyways. Yeah. And, like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm not taking the Browns at the same price as the Bengals. Like, are they off the board? Yeah, dude, they're off the board. Everything Browns related is off the board. Because so there you go. That was exactly right. I was talking to Reed about that because the win total now is down. So right after the news did break that they was getting appealed, it was still up, and they were like plus 230, and like the Bengals were like plus 210, which to me was just like, no, like, I mean, that's ridiculous. So I'm kind of just out on Cleveland this year. I think that it's a shame because, like, from a football perspective, I would really like to see Stefanski, Chubb, Watson, Amari Cooper. It's a skill group I'm really interested in. I think that would be I think they could be a good team, but, like, there's too much going on. And we don't even know if we're going to see that happen with Watson under center this year. So when the ruling was made the other day, moved from plus 275 to plus 230. That was the latest before it got taken down. That's a 3.63% increase on the odds. So now they are at the third highest odds of winning the AFC North behind the Ravens and the Bengals. And yeah, like, it's not a great for the off the field stuff. It's not a great comparison, but it's kind of like when the Brooklyn Nets gave Kevin Durant when they signed him initially. They're like, all right, we know you're going to miss you. We're going to miss you for the year, but we're going to have we're like, our mindset is we're not going to have you for the year. So take care of your injury. See you next year is my point. Like, just for the whole collective to move forward. I hear you. So
I had another question. We can wrap on this. And this is really a fantasy related question, but I think it's worth bringing up because Reed brought this up about Trey Lance and Debo. Jeff and I, we've talked about Tyreek Hill a lot on this show and maybe taking his unders, but Deontay Johnson gets paid today. And it got me thinking, when we look at fantasy this year and drafting receivers, do we have to look at this also through the lens of a GM telling his coach, like, hey, we just gave this guy $18 million a year. So, I don't care if it's Pickett or if it's Trubisky. We better use this guy. Tyreek Hill, we just gave up a lot of picks and money to get this guy. Does that all cross your mind when these contracts are coming out, the Debo contract, the way they used him last year? Because with the new Debo contract too, they did not put a clause in there of how he can be used. He got his money, and it's a team-friendly deal also. So
there's some bonuses for Debo in his contract, though. There's some bonuses for running back touches, which is really interesting. So, but yeah, I mean, I when you get paid, expectations are there, and the expectations are, I mean, you're there to be the man. You're not there to be like a sideline player. I mean, different. Every organization's a little bit different. Every coach is a little bit different. Some coaches take that rah, we're all equal. Like the hardest player is going to get the touches. But I mean, Deontay Johnson's playing with Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is legitimately one of the most trustworthy coaches for fantasy. He plays his stars. Najee Harris, like 90% snap rate as a rookie. Antonio Brown used to just get peppered with targets. Deontay Johnson is going to get targeted this year. But yeah, to your point of, these guys signing big contracts. Yeah, sure. I think that, the 49ers or, Debo, if you don't want to be a running back, that's fine, but you better be prepared to catch a bunch of footballs then and perform that direction. Sure. And Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill is the one I have the most concern about. I've kind of went on about this. I actually wrote about it this week. But it's a new offense, and, opportunity is one thing, but like, he wasn't the alpha on this team last year. Mike Gesicki and Jalen Waddle, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's like 260 targets. Those guys are there. They're there. They haven't left. Sure, Devontae Parker's gone, but like Devontae Parker was just a big body in the end zone anyway. That's just what he is.
His best year was also,
he's also
like
injured all the time. He's also injured all the time. I think he played. I think he was injured last year. So
he was.
Tyreek Hill is walking into a situation where I think he may actually, like not get used like a true number one, like not get peppered with targets. Like he'll be a little bit of a system guy, which sounds weird. And he's still going to get usage. I'm not saying he's like going to get like 5 touches a game, but you'll see him get used on some rushes. But like Waddle's still going to be like a big part of like the short yardage game. Gesicki will get used in the end zone, and like they'll take their shots with Tyreek, but I don't think you're going to see a huge shift in targets for those other guys either. So if you are going to take a Tyreek under, it's the receiving touchdowns.
Yes, sir. Which I was going to bring that up. That's now at minus 130.
That's my favorite bet for Tyreek. I think he could get there with the yardage just because he's such a good, obviously after the catch,
run after catch,
and all that stuff. But 8.5 receiving touchdowns. Debo Samuel, no San Francisco wide receiver last year in the Mike McDaniel offense had more than 6 touchdowns receiving.
Those receivers they're not Tyreek Hill. Let's get one thing straight. Tyreek Hill is a freak of nature. To an extent, I agree with you.
So is Debo Samuel. I mean, I don't.
True, but Debo Samuel, Debo Samuel is just like a pure athlete. I think Tyreek Hill is, if I had to rate their athleticism, Debo Samuel I think is much better than Tyreek Hill. But there's speed in the NFL, and that's always been tracking. This goes back to the Raiders. Like speed absolutely kills in the NFL. It just does. And he is the fastest guy like in the NFL. Jalen Waddle is basically that guy as well. That's what Miami brought him in last year to do. But to your question, Glash, how I look at contracts in sports is much different than let's for instance say that all 3 of us got a promotion, right? We're getting paid for what we're supposed to do in upcoming months, right? Like potential. Like your potential as a broadcaster is going to be this high, therefore I'm going to pay you this much money. And to an extent, it's the same for sports, but a lot of it is what you've done already, right? This many yards, this many targets, this many touchdowns. And that's what Deontay Johnson, look, he was 3rd in targets last year, and he's always been high in targets. He was 5th in receptions, and he was 9th in yards. This guy is an absolute machine when it comes to targets. So for fantasy, I would look at that more so than this guy getting paid, because a lot of times we hear contract year. This is a contract year for this player, so therefore he's going to get as many, like he's going to try and get as many, things as possible. Incentives. Bukes was a big on like week 16 or 17. The incentives for these players, that's how it plays into it. But I would argue that for fantasy, I would actually go a little bit more to the narratives and like what Jeff is talking about. So many people, I believe, are in the Jeff camp about Tyreek Hill. That it's a new system, it's Tua, it's not Mahomes. That means Tyreek Hill might go in the 2nd round, right? Maybe, like in redrafts, maybe mid to late 2nd round. Swoop him up. This is not the same thing as Jamar Chase last year, but drops everywhere. Drops here, drops there. No one loved Jamar Chase. And what did he do? Right? No one loves Tyreek Hill. He's in a new offense. He's a new quarterback. Yada, yada, yada. Draft Tyreek Hill because he is an absolute monster when it comes to yards after the catch, when it comes to what he can do on the field. They're going to get him the ball. They're going to get Jalen Waddle the ball. They're going to get Mike Gesicki the ball. Draft Tyreek Hill. If he starts to slip, if he stays if he buoys in that late 1st, early 2nd, that's a little high. But if he starts falling, absolutely swoop him up.
Jeff makes a good point about Tomlin's consistency and how he gets the most out of guys. But let's remember, too, Pittsburgh hasn't had a different quarterback in almost 2 decades.
It's still Deontay Johnson still carries risk. It's absolutely. Yeah.
I only brought that up because all 3 of those guys, Deontay Johnson, Deebo Samuel, and Tyreek Hill will all have a different quarterback, and they'll all be a young quarterback. But point being is if you're going to invest into that position, wouldn't the idea be, okay, lean on these guys, put Tyreek in the backfield if that's what it takes, put Deebo in the backfield for those incentives if that's what it takes, use Deontay however you need, because we just paid him and we just got Mitch Trubisky and we took the kid out of Pitt. So these guys are going to get their money's worth is the point.
The Dolphins also have Jeff Spoy and Chase Edmonds and like 400 other running backs as well.
That's again,
Raheem Mostert.
Reed is right. Is Tyreek Hill there's no other Tyreek Hill. But that's why I'm saying if you are going to fade him, and I'm fading him fantasy, but I like the betting side of under the receiving touchdowns. The receiving touchdowns. Daniel loves to run. He's got 5 starting running backs for a reason. San Francisco runs a lot in the red zone. The red zone targets, those easy touchdowns, they just might not be there with Miami. He's still a great player, obviously.
You gotta hope that he doesn't get those 2 touchdown games more than twice.
Yeah, he's probably, after all this brouhaha of me talking this bet up, he's going to score 3 touchdowns through the year.
Like week 1.
It's like it's a given, but hopefully he'll slow down the back half.
To wrap the show, and I think Reed said this, 6 receiving touchdowns for Deebo Samuel under that head coach last year. Had 8 on the ground, though. But again.
And again, he did get turned into a running back. That's probably not going to happen.
And a lot of those 2 were screens where he took it 80 yards for a touchdown.
That's a good point. Okay, and make sure if you want to take Jeff's bet, do it now because it keeps moving. It was at -120, now it's at -130. Okay, we got to go. Guys, this was fun. Good to see both of you again. It's been a while, so more so you, Reed. So
thanks, man.
Have fun.
Looking nice on your skin. You got a little tanner as well, Glash.
Yeah, it's August, so yeah.
I'm also hungry, so I'm waiting for another tweet from Glasheen's account.
See, Jeff, this is why I still do it. For that right there. It's like, all right, people still can't handle the content. Okay. Very good. Thanks to Eamon and Daniel. We've got, it's a Niners sim coming up. So you all can drool and watch Trey Lance because just start thinking about all the futures you can take on him, and the player futures is great. Baseball show tomorrow. I think that's how it works on Fridays. And then the weekend's off and running. Enjoy the football tonight, everybody. Thanks for watching.